to do. We're now, again, going to look at our national picks. And these, I think, I can't see the records. Craig is 25-20, is that right?
No, he's 35. You both are 35 and 28.
35 and 28. Paul?
I'm 32 and 31.
Okay. But you made up around a game or two.
I made two games on you both last week.
Yes. So let's see if we can keep you right where you need to be. TCU, home against Texas Tech. Tech coming off of, we've discussed this, but off the loss at home to Baylor. Turn right around, play against the top team right now, ranked, unbeaten, and leading the conference in TCU. And all of us make this pretty boring across the top. Horned Frogs across the board.
Yeah, I don't see Texas Tech winning this game on the road. They haven't done that yet. TCU's just been so good this year. Sonny Dykes playing against Tech. I love that matchup just because of the history of his father. I just think this is TCU all the way here. But Tech is going to probably play a better four-quarter game than they did a week ago. And it has nothing to do with TCU. I just think that they probably have a better performance in them than what happened last week in Lubbock.
Yeah, I'm going to TCU. I just feel like they're the better team, and I don't feel like they're going to be caught off guard by Texas Tech, walking in pissed off and, rip-roaring ready to go because of what happened a week ago. I do think they'll have their hands full, like I said, and I don't think that they can afford to get down and then expect to just automatically climb out of a hole again. I mean, they've been able to do that, but I don't think that they can keep playing that way and just keep magically finding a way to ultimately end up on top. Be careful playing with all that fire, but, I just think TCU top to bottom is better. And Tech, they give up a lot of explosive plays. And, facing a team like TCU, what does TCU do well? They hit explosive plays. I mean, that's their bread and butter. That's what they do. They don't, go in necessarily long grinding drives. They're going to hit big pass and big runs. And, I just think that they're going to be a little bit too much when all is said and done for Texas Tech.
You hit on what I thought about their explosiveness, and Tech has that too, but they give up a lot. TCU's given up some points. So, again, I just feel like TCU at home will have too much. Now, Baylor has beaten Oklahoma one time in the history of the times they've played. I think Oklahoma leads the series like 24-1. It was back in 2014. Baylor walked into Norman and maybe changed Bob Stoops' coaching career. They beat them up, made them like it. It was stunning, and it was methodical with Bryce Petty as the quarterback. They've beaten them one time. Now, there were some bad teams that played in Norman, but once, and they've been pretty good in football, except a couple of occasions since 2010.
Yeah, they didn't change Bob Stoops' coaching career particularly. They changed Mike Stoops' coaching career for sure that day. And because of what they did to that defense, I think here this comes down to a pretty simple matchup for me. Oklahoma's not been great stopping the run. If the RVO works like it did last week against Texas Tech, then Baylor wins this game. I think that's the thing that tilts the matchup in Baylor's favor to me, but I do not think this is going to be in any way a cakewalk because Baylor doesn't really win cakewalks. And it's in Norman, a place they've only won one at a time, but I do think it's time for the second win.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the point where I don't really think, I've mentioned it too, the whole one win in Norman thing, but I don't really think that matters. I really don't. I mean, this team is road tested at this point. I don't think that Norman's going to be any more daunting than Provo was or than Texas Tech was supposed to be or maybe how Ames was there for a while. We had whoever it was that commented earlier about not having the pulse on, or the pulse on Baylor or whatever. It's just it's hard to when it's a different pulse week to week. I mean, that's the thing about it. Like, on paper, I think, this is what I'm going off of. Baylor is a better team overall, top to bottom, than Oklahoma. Not by a large margin, not by, double digits. I think that they are a better team, just slightly over Oklahoma, with both at their best. And, that would normally lead me to side with the home team in this situation, and I got really close to perhaps picking Oklahoma in this one. But I just think Baylor's a better team. So if they play at their best, then I think they go in there and they get a win. Now, whether they do that or not, obviously, is the wild card, because last week they did. Other times they haven't, and it's really just a crapshoot on whether they've learned their lesson now at this point. Have they learned their lesson about how focused and into this they have to be every single time out? Or did they listen to press clippings and all of those things like they were known to do, or at least let that leak into their brains in the build-up? after a big win. And if they did that, then Oklahoma's going to beat them by a couple scores. And I can't predict that because I'm not in that locker room to know what the mentality is on whether or not they are locked in like last week or they are feeling good about a win. And so that's the guessing game here. I'm going to believe that they've learned their lesson now at this point, and with a month to go, they have to know what's at stake coming up in this game. So that's why I went with the Bears.
Yeah, I picked Baylor based on last week, and if they would have kind of just struggled and won, and I don't think I do, even though Oklahoma had that little stretch where they were kind of, they were hitting and missing. Well, hell, so did Baylor, but they were winning some of those compared to the Sooners, and it's hard to overcome you got beat up badly by TCU. Everyone now, not everybody been beaten up, but that game against Texas was wholly, but they have turned at least. The tide is now somewhat not against them. It's kind of more as much about the same with them.
They have the exact same record. They have the exact same 2-game winning streak. It's the exact same thing, except for the fact that Baylor didn't get blown out by Texas. And, yeah, they got blown out by Texas, but who was the quarterback?
Yeah.
Dillon Gabriel did not play in that game, so it's not like that was the Oklahoma team that we're talking about here. I mean, Texas maybe still blows them out, but they don't shut them out the way that they did Davis Bevel. I mean, that's a game that needs to be brought up for just talk about this Oklahoma team in general, but I don't think it's a great comparison for who they are at this point at all.
Well, the difference between this year's Oklahoma and the years that they got used to under Stoops and Riley was if a Dillon Gabriel went down, the guy they usually had behind him was somebody that was just about ready to
Caleb
be
Williams.
Yeah, exactly. Was about ready to go. And the gap between Dillon Gabriel and Davis Bevel is much more prodigious.
Yeah, no, they got the
spoiled.
quarterbacks we've seen that have gone down, the starters compared to the backups, this one might be the largest drop-off. I can't think of what other school might be more of a drop-off, and unfortunately for Bevels, than Dillon Gabriel to him. Even Baylor Chapin goes down, and Kyron Drones played pretty well. Obviously, I don't know what the backup would be for West Virginia with J.T. Daniels, but
It'd be Garrett Green.
Green, okay. No, and so you saw Kansas. Daniels goes down, and we saw what Bean brought to the table. Card for Ewers. So, yeah, there's a big drop-off for Oklahoma. But that game did happen, and it's still in my mind because they no-showed in that one, and Texas had a lot to do with that. In fact, a lot to do with that one. All right, next game. Here's number 1 against number 2, or 2 against 3, 1 against 3, whatever number you want to go with. Tennessee, the Vols, and Georgia.
I got a feeling that Tennessee is kind of this year's team of destiny. They've got 2019 LSU vibes, and that they maybe not as deep and talented. It's just like the way that they kind of just control every game the way that they want it to go has been that way. Now, this is going to be harder against Georgia, who also does that. I just think that Tennessee might be just a little bit too much for them. I think there's something special about this particular season and this particular team.
I don't know. I really struggle with this one back and forth. I initially picked Georgia and then probably outthought myself and going towards Tennessee after stewing on it a little bit. I keep hearing all week of I just don't know if Georgia can match scores with them, as though Tennessee's just going to waltz in there and every, drive is going to be scoring touchdowns. And that was a lot of what we used to hear about Baylor, right? are they going to be able to match points? In certain matchups, that was that case. And in a lot of matchups, they struggled to get to 35-2 or to 28 or whatever it was. It just all depends on the style of game. So, last week, did anybody have Texas Tech scoring 17 points?
Nope.
No, they had a red-hot, rapid-fire offense. Well, if you don't have the football, then can't score 45 points. And so I think Georgia tries to keep the ball away from Tennessee as much as possible. I mean, that's what every team that faces them is gonna try to do at least. And even then, it can be demoralizing because you can keep it away for 15 minutes and they score in 30 seconds once they get it. And it's like you did all of that just to have them match it in 2 plays, and that's what's just crushing for teams. But I don't have a lot of scientific reasoning as to why I picked Tennessee, other than just they're red hot. They seem like a bit of a team of destiny. I do think that there's probably a bit too much just overlooking of just how good Georgia has been. And I know it's not the same team as last year and the same defense as last year. But, yeah, give me the Vols. I just feel as much as anything else.
Georgia is not who they were last year, but they're still really, really good.
Yep.
They had the game where they got tested, and scared the hell out of them in Missouri. They also smoked Oregon, who's pretty good, and I don't know if that's who they are now, but I just feel I've always been this way, and it doesn't work out every time, and I've missed them because of it. They are the defending champions. They lost a lot, but they didn't lose everybody, and they replaced people like Alabama does, and Tennessee scoring 52 against Alabama. A lot of teams have been able to have success against their defense this year. I just have Georgia at home. Is that between the hedges?
Yep.
I have Georgia at home beating Tennessee. And guess what? If I'm wrong, I'm thrilled for Josh Heupel and the Vols because it is already a great story. TCU, Tennessee, a couple of the great stories right now in college football. Now this one, my goodness. Kansas needs another win. They still need a win to get bowl eligible. Oklahoma State had to go home with their tails between their legs. Both of you, we've talked about this. Paul Catalina, you take the Jayhawks.
Biggest reason
Shocking.
I believe James.
I mean, at this point, man, like, goodness gracious. I get why this week. I get it. But.
Yeah. Look, no. The good news is she does not care about football. She only cares about, like, it's not honestly, for most, and I don't mean to call you out, Jayhawks fans, but from what I've gathered, it is not in most Jayhawks fans' DNA to care about football yet. They're enjoying it. Kind of like an after dinner drink almost. Like that's what they do, but they still are addicted to basketball. But Kansas this week, I think I'm basing it on the belief that Jalen Daniels will play and Spencer Sanders may not. And if this does become a battle of the backups, I like Jason Bean more than I like Gunnar Gundy. One, because Jason Bean has played a lot more than Gunnar Gundy has. And I don't like what I'm seeing from Oklahoma State as far as availability of not just the quarterbacks, but everybody else. They're struggling to get out of the medical tent, so to speak. And I think Kansas gets that 6th win. Now, this might be the last one, but I do think they get that 6th win this week. And Jalen Daniels is such a difference maker for them. I think that's why.
Maybe,
now, if he does not play, then I get a little more nervous about this, but I do think he's playing this week.
Craig Smoak?
This is that's why I don't bet. By the way, a disclaimer: this is not betting advice in any way, shape, or form. I think we might be the only college football show that doesn't give betting advice, like on
Thank
the regular
God.
at this point. It seems like everybody's an expert, but there are some ones that are really good, and we're not claiming to be that. This is just our picks, right?
Yeah, if you want to get your thumbs broken, do this.
Yeah, just to be very clear there.
You're going to wake up in bed with a horse's head,
Yeah,
right?
do this.
So, I mean, this is a game this is why, I don't bet. Because not knowing the injury situation. Like, this is the thing is, like, if college football keeps growing, I've heard this before, and especially if, like, let's say Brett Yormark wants to get into the gambling side of things, which he very well could, because that's just an obvious, entry into another, batch of money would be sports betting and things like that. You'd have to let everybody know what the status of these guys is, like the NFL does. And so I welcome that if we're going to go that direction, is you can't hide that Jalen Daniels still isn't healthy and not anywhere close. You'd have to actually let people know that. So I would be all for getting closer to actually knowing who's going to play and getting rid of some of these, these mind games, although that's part of the fun too. So with the mind games involved, I was very apt to go with KU here, but I went with Oklahoma State, man. I think Spencer Sanders ends up playing. I don't know that. And even if he does, I don't know how healthy he'll be, obviously. But I don't know how healthy they are. And so this is just a wild guess that they bounced back from complete embarrassment last week. An all-time embarrassing loss for Mike Gundy, who's coached a lot of games in Stillwater. This is a pride thing for me. This is like a gut check type of a game for me. And look, they might not have enough guts available to be able to put up a fight, but not knowing that, I just have to go with my gut, and my gut says Oklahoma State's going to have more pride than losing this next game after what we saw last week. But if KU wins, I would not be shocked, especially if Sanders is out. That's going to make it a pretty easy call there.
Well, if they do win, they are bowl eligible. That is another great story in college football. It's kind of dampened a little bit because of the streak they're on, losing Jalen Daniels, although Bean played well in his absence. So I have Oklahoma State. I just have a feeling about it. I don't really have any reasons why other than just I think they're a better team. Not much better, but a better team.
Oh, yeah, I do think they're the better team. Yeah.
Iowa State. Oh, man, I'll tell you what. Matt Campbell needs a win. The Cyclones need a win. West Virginia, Neil Brown need a win. Across the board, because we all like Adam Batchelor, we take the Cyclones to beat West Virginia.
I just think it's time. And they're both kind of, they're not the same, because I don't think Iowa State is hovering in this like void of nothingness that West Virginia seems to be stuck in. But I do think that this is at home where it tilts their way in what is a game between two teams where one side of the ball, when you're watching it at times in this game, you're going to be like, what are you doing? But I do think this is Iowa State this week, and what is going to be not probably a fun game to watch.
Yeah, this is not the best brand of football maybe that you can find this weekend. Not maybe. It's definitely not. But I don't know. I think this will be entertaining in its own weird way, right? This is Sickos Committee type of stuff for sure, to shout out those fellas. This is kind of, I think, up their alley, this game. I go Iowa State. I just feel like they're due, and I don't know where else they're getting a win. Perhaps Kansas, but outside of that, I don't see the Cyclones winning a Big 12 game. Being at home, I'm going to go with them here, although, I could definitely see West Virginia having enough firepower to be able to edge them. I really got a bad vibe with Neil Brown last week, and that's kind of what's pushing me more than anything. Is I think they're pretty even teams. I definitely despise Iowa State's current offense and just how bleh it is. No run game, is a big part of the reason why there. So that bodes well in West Virginia's favor. I'm not exactly sure how Iowa State is going to score enough points, honestly, but I trust their defense. That's the thing, is they're going to have a really good defense. I think they, maybe force some JT Daniels mistakes or get a couple turnovers. I don't know how it unfolds, but I do think it'll probably be a closer game. And give me the Clones to finally win one.
I take Iowa State. I just have them at home. Sometimes that matters, sometimes it doesn't. I just saw a picture. Our good friend Jed's Redding, they landed, I guess, in Ames or Des Moines, and it's nasty up there, just like it is here. It's just nasty. So that you would think, would that not help Iowa State if the weather's nasty, no matter what the turf? Of course, with the not being, is that grass? Iowa State?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You can't be an ag school and have turf. I'm just telling you right now. Ask A&M how they had to, go back after they put
the days
turf
when
down.
they had the concrete.
Yeah.
LSU, what a nice story they've become in college football after a little bit of a shaky start. Garrett Ross is happier because of it. Mm-hmm. Alabama and LSU. We both, all of us, across the board with Alabama.
I will not be threatened by Garrett and any of his goons. I actually do think that this should be a much better game than we would have thought it would have been a month ago. I think Jade Daniels makes this really interesting, especially what he is amazingly good at. And teams early in the year were letting him do it, which is, well, if he's not going to throw the ball, we'll let him run for a first down, because when they get in the red zone, we'll make him throw and they won't score. Well, now that he has better relationships with most of the receivers, I still think that he and Butte are not simpatico, but most
disappointing.
Yeah, most of the other guys he seems to have a really good rapport with. I think that this will be interesting, but Bama is at about as full strength as they've been in a little bit, and I do think that they need a statement big win against a good SEC team after the loss to Tennessee. So I do think Bama beats this on depth and experience, but and that's only because of the way that this team at LSU is constructed right now. Is they're good 1 to 26 or 7, but they're not good 1 to 85 like Alabama would be.
Yeah, give me the Tide. I just think that they're a better team overall. I know they've had some bumps as well. LSU's I think exceeded expectations, and certainly can be a team that rips off some exciting plays and can do a little something on offense, but and you got to love what they've done as well. Especially Harold Perkins is the name that everybody's talking about now, and he's not alone, but he's the dude, and that's why you hear his name like constantly now. Like there's a lot to like about LSU, but yeah, I default to Bama. I feel like they're about to go into postseason mode here, and I don't think that they're going to be by any means less than anything but a very sharp version of themselves, knowing what they're walking into. So I'd expect this Bama team to just be ready to go and out to make a point. This is Alabama LSU, man. This isn't a game that I think Bama's going to come weekly walking. I think everybody's got their big guns ready to go, and I think Bama's just got bigger guns right now than LSU does.
Night game?
It's 6. Yeah, it's going to be a 6 o'clock game.
That's good. There's an article, and I don't know if it's in The Athletic or ESPN, about night games, broadcasting and all that in Baton Rouge. I'll take Bama. Now, this one here, a great matchup. Texas had a week off after they blew that lead against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, of course, the next week, wished they would have had a week off, and they almost acted like they did with what happened against Kansas State. Kansas State, this was a team that if anyone other than one or two of the favorites, Oklahoma State, Baylor, maybe, Oklahoma, was going to win the conference, this is the one that got a lot of early play. Then they had the loss to Tulane. Then they had that game where they were dominating TCU on the board 28-10, and they couldn't hold on to it. They're good. Texas has a week off. You would think that would help. Maybe get Ewers back into a better, accuracy. His hand or whatever was healed, his toenail or whatever it might have been. Paul?
I picked Kansas State in what should be a very good game just because of the way their defense has been playing. I'm really impressed, especially last week. I know that's a banged-up team. They did that too, but shutting out anybody in the Big 12 is impressive, and they're playing with intensity. They're playing at home, so that's why I picked them. It is – this was the hardest one by far. It was just harder for me to pick than Tennessee and Georgia. By far, this was the hardest game for me to pick all week. I lean towards the home team. I lean towards the better defense. But this is the one where I feel the worst about giving a game back to you guys, or at least to Craig, not to you, but to Craig. I'll get because Texas off of a bye. That should scare everybody, I think.
Why?
Just because I think Sarkisian, get everybody rested. This Texas team has a better vibe about it than they have in years. The way that they approach things and take things. I know that, not staying out there for the fight song is the little, UT drama of the year, but I think they can brush that off a little bit better than previous iterations of the team. So that's why. But I'm still leaning Kansas State here, but I feel the worst about it than all the picks.
All right.
I think Pole Assassin has 3 touchdowns for. Oh wait, no, that's a different Texas story. I didn't struggle with this one as much as as much as Tennessee, Georgia. That was the toughie for me. But I tell you guys all the time. I don't think any Texas fan who randomly pops in and listens feels like it, or realizes it. But I overrate Texas constantly. Like, have we established that at this point? Like, I give them the benefit of the doubt.
You do,
more
but
often
you're not the only one. I mean, like America does.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't put them in my top 25 poll to prop up teams at the front end like Alabama, like the committee did very clearly. But, yeah, I do think that they're probably one of the best teams, best 3-loss teams in the country. Coming off the bye, Ewers was not very good at all the last time we saw him. And I started to see that too. Like, now there's a hand injury that's, so it was the wind. And now it's a hand injury. So it's the wind and the hand injury. I don't know if both are going to be in play for him tomorrow or not. But, Hudson Card, maybe go to him quicker if Ewers is struggling that way. Like, I don't know. Maybe go to the guy who's probably going to be a top 5 potential transfer portal target, an NIL guy this offseason, and Hudson Card if Ewers is having that much of a problem. I like K-State a lot. If they win this game, it won't be surprising in the slightest. I do think that was a really obviously impressive win over Oklahoma State, even though clearly Oklahoma State wasn't at their best. You still have to give K-State a ton of credit for just going out there and taking care of their business and being done with it. I think Texas gets back on track after having a little bit of time to catch their breath and just a bit too much firepower in this game for the Longhorns.
Is there anyone other than TCU, if they were playing this weekend in Manhattan, buy or not, you would pick to beat K-State?
Might pick Baylor.
Might.
I might. TCU,
and they're playing
I
in
might.
Waco next week.
I don't. That's probably it. Probably about it.
All right, and I picked Kansas State, and I think of them as, they lost to Tulane, who's really pretty good, but also that's a long time ago. They had a 28-10 lead against TCU. And that game almost seemed like it flipped because TCU scored right before the half. So 28-10 against a team that's unbeaten right now, who came back to beat them. And they smothered Oklahoma State 48-0.